NATO holds an emergency meeting over Turkey's strikes on the Islamic State and Kurdish militants, vowing strong support for Ankara's fight against terror. Clashes in the West Bank settlement of Beit El as protesters try to halt Israel's planned demolition of housing, while in the evacuated settlement of Sanur, settlers return in protest. And a Libyan court sentences Muammar Gaddafi's son, Saif al-Islam, and 8 others to death on charges of war crimes during the 2011 revolution.
The News Today with Lucy Aharish.
Good evening and welcome to the News Today. Representatives from all 28 NATO member countries gathered today in Brussels for a rare meeting to discuss Turkey's campaign against the Islamic State terror group and Kurdish militants. The bloc threw its support behind Turkey as Ankara declared the peace process with the Kurdish PKK is over. Correspondent Ayman Siksik has the latest.
In a dramatic announcement today, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said that the peace process with the PKK, or Kurdistan Workers' Party, established in 2013 was, quote, impossible to uphold.
Those who walk in the countryside and in big cities wearing masks and carrying guns and petrol bombs will get the necessary response from our security forces and judiciary bodies. The removal of any threat and establishment of a safe zone in the area that is mentioned as the supply zone by us will also be a foundation for the ones who expect to return back to their countries.
But the fight against the PKK is not the only war Turkey is waging. In an emergency summit today, members of all 28 NATO countries are meeting in Brussels to discuss Turkey's campaign against both the Islamic State terror group and the PKK. NATO's chief, Jens Stoltenberg, was clear in outlining the world body's alliances in the Middle East, in which Turkey is considered a rare and important friend.
We hold this meeting today to address the instability on Turkey's doorstep and on NATO's border. NATO is following developments very closely, and we stand in strong solidarity with our ally Turkey.
Support from NATO comes at a crucial time for Turkey, now engaged in a messy war in a rapidly changing Middle East. After months of inaction, Ankara finally bowed to Western pressure last week and launched an air campaign against IS targets in Iraq. The move came after months of accusations that Turkey had indirectly supported the IS outside its borders, in hopes that the terrorist group would clash with another enemy of the Turkish government, the PKK. But the tactical move, if in fact true, came to a halt last week, as well as Turkey's ceasefire agreement with the PKK, when positions of the militia group were also hit by Turkish fighter jets. U.S. officials say the Turkish strikes on the PKK were not part of Washington's coordination with Ankara. But as far as Turkish officials are concerned, the war on both the IS and the PKK is all part of one struggle: to eliminate what Turkey sees as terrorists in its heart.
And with me right now is journalist from Istanbul, is journalist Laura Wells. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining me, Laura.
Good evening. Thank you.
So, Laura, what this support coming from NATO is, let's say, a big, we're saying here in Israel, big kosher signature to Turkey's action in Syria and maybe in the entire Middle East.
Well, of course, NATO said that they stand in solidarity with Turkey. The Secretary General said that Turkey had apprised them of their operations against ISIS as well as the PKK. Earlier in the day, President Erdogan, before flying to China, he said that he demands that NATO be prepared at a moment's notice. So it does sound like Turkey is starting to prepare something. We just don't know what at this point.
Yeah, let's talk about just a little bit about the conversation that Erdogan had with Vladimir Putin yesterday. What was that? Like a backup plan, and that if NATO won't support, I have Russia?
Well, certainly President Erdogan, he always hedges his bets. He's pretty close with Putin, especially with trade. He's actually pretty close with the Iranian regime and also with trade. And right now he's in China, and he's talking about buying a missile defense system from them. He's trying to play NATO off of China to get the best deal, but there's also a veiled threat there that we might just go with another country and buy our missile defense system, which is actually against NATO's rules.
Laura, try to describe me right now Erdogan, because Erdogan, after the election, it came out like a little bit weak president, a little bit maybe somebody who is not able to manage all the crises that he has in his own country. And right now it seems that little by little, piece by piece, he's managing to step up and maybe get back into the game before, although people didn't think that he can get back to the game.
Aside from today, he really has been pretty quiet. And when he's quiet, it usually means something big is about to happen. A lot of people after the national election in June counted Erdogan out because, of course, because the formerly ruling party, AK Party, had not gained a clear majority in parliament, people thought this was ushering in a new era. I think quite to the contrary, no one can count out Erdogan until all the chips have fallen, and we don't even have a government in Turkey at this point. Some people believe that the strikes against PKK in particular, and to a lesser extent ISIS right now, is to manipulate the domestic politics and the domestic sentiment of voters. There will likely be a new re-election, and a lot of people are talking about liking the strength that the de facto AK Party government is showing against these terrorists. Yes. HDP is under fire right now. Even Erdogan said today that they have links with terror and that their parliamentary immunity to prosecution should be dropped immediately. The co-head of HDP, Demirtas, he struck back and he said he has no problem with that. He would like for that to be dropped for all of the HDP MPs immediately, and he'd like all the other MPs to follow suit.
Yes, Laura Wells, always a pleasure. Thank you very much for this.
Thank you.
And right now here with me in the studio is Middle East editor for Israel Public Radio, Iran Zinger. Good evening.
Hi.
It seems that Erdogan is taking all the prestige out of the Kurdish, because for now the only people who were maintaining the situation or maintaining the victories against IS were the Kurdish. And right now, with him getting the back of NATO, with him getting the back of the United States, with him declaring some kind of a victory here, I'm going to save the Middle East from IS, this is taking all the glory from the courts.
You're totally right. And the questions that are now being asked, especially in Turkey, is, why now? I mean, why did you have to wait so long before you decided to make some kind of action against ISIS, especially when so many elements in the region claim, and even they say that it's the Turkish responsibility for the creation of ISIS. And we should be very frank here. The whole idea of ISIS was established with not with the help or with the direction of the Turkish government, but with some infrastructure that was very helpful from the side of the Turkish government, because the border between Turkey and Syria is open, has been open for such a long time, and all kinds of terrorist activities or all kinds of terrorist organizations were managing to act inside this region, especially ISIS. So the question is, why are you acting against ISIS right now?
Exactly. And more than that, it's like, why you're acting right now in this specific point when you are, because it seems like they needed a reason. And what, the bombing and the terror attack was the reason?
Two major reasons. First of all, unfortunately, ISIS is not the reason. Even though we did see this suicide attack a week ago, in which more than 30 people were killed on Turkish soil. There are two major reasons. The first one, Erdogan is looking at what's going on right now on the border of Turkey, and he cannot live with the fact that the Kurds may have their own sovereignty, or God forbid, a state. This is something that the Turkish administration will never let the Kurds have. This is one thing. And the other thing, as Laura just mentioned, the political domestic problems. Everything that happens right now in the fight between the Turkish army and the Kurds in northern Syria is not addressed to northern Syria. It's into Ankara, into the Turkish parliament. This is Erdogan's way to say, now I'm going to deal with all my domestic problems by fighting what's happened across the border.
Well, maybe he's managing to understand something that Barack Obama didn't manage to understand with his foreign policy, yes. Iran Zenger, thank you very much for this. And we're going to Libya. Libyan court has passed a death sentence in absentia on Muammar Gaddafi's most prominent son, Saif al-Islam, for suppressing peaceful protest during the country's 2011 revolution that ended his father's rule. War Shapira and Michael Friedman have more on today's verdicts.
Saif al-Islam Gaddafi, former political figure and the most prominent son of deceased Libyan dictator Muammar Gaddafi, was sentenced to death Tuesday for war crimes and for acting to crush peaceful protests during Libya's 2011 revolution. Along with him, 8 other former officials from Gaddafi's administration were also sentenced to be shot by firing squad. Muammar Gaddafi came to power in a military coup in 1969 and promised a socialist revolution for the North African country based on his Green Book. His second son, Saif al-Islam, was born in 1972. He rejected his father's proposal to become the second in command and held no official government position, but was none other than less very much involved in running the country and was considered a possible successor to his father. He was the second most recognized person in Libya and a well-known figure outside of it, associated with a luxurious lifestyle and welcomed by top world leaders. During the rise of the Arab Spring in 2011, Libya faced a fierce battle between Gaddafi supporters and the rebels. As opposed to other figures in the Gaddafi family, Saif didn't hesitate to appear in public and lead the pro-Gaddafi camp.
The Libyan people, they woke up and now they realize the danger around them. So now we are more united, we are more optimistic, and we are much stronger.
But optimism was apparently not enough. On October 2011, Gaddafi's government was toppled and Muammar Gaddafi fled, was hunted down, and was lynched. Saif al-Islam went underground until he was captured in November that year. He tried to flee the country and turn himself over to the International Court in Hague, but failed. His trial began in April 2014 before Libya entered another round of violence between 2 rival factions. Human rights agencies have raised concerns over the fairness and competence of Libya's justice system. Although Saif may appeal to the High Court, this is perhaps a final chapter in the life of Muammar Gaddafi's leading heir, and maybe even the entire Gaddafi regime, a dictatorship which ruled the North African country for more than 4 decades.
And from Libya to Iran, European Union Foreign Policy Chief Federica Mogherini arrived in Tehran today to discuss the implementation of an agreement reached between Iran and 6 world powers, with the aim of curbing the country's nuclear program in return for sanctions relief. Mogherini was in Saudi Arabia yesterday in an attempt to calm its leadership over the deal with the Islamic Republic. And right now with me to understand if she managed to calm things down and actually to reach to some of the deals that she wanted to reach is Dr. Ali Nourizadeh, Director Center of Iranian Arab Studies. Good evening. Good to have you back with us.
Good evening to you. Thank you.
Dr. Ali Nourizadeh, first of all, I missed you and I missed talking with you about Iran. I miss you too. So this is the first thing. The second thing, did she really manage to convince, let's say, Saudi Arabia in her intention, in her peaceful intention, in the goodness of this deal? And what did she actually close in Iran that she didn't close before in Vienna?
Well, I don't think her sentences or whatever she delivered is more important than what the King of Saudi Arabia heard from Obama, and then the discussion between his foreign minister with John Kerry and also with Obama. I'm sure the Saudis, well, face saving formula. They accepted that, well, it is not a bad deal, but they are concerned. They want the American to guarantee that they will watch Iran. I mean, a couple of days ago, the Bahrainis arrested two persons who tried to bring explosive they received from Iran. Today, there was an explosion in Bahrain and the Saudis look at Bahrain security as their own security. So it's not the question of the deal. It's the question is Iran going to be better neighbor after the deal? I don't think so.
You don't think that Iran is going to be a better neighbor after the deal? You really think that this deal is going to make Iran even, let's say, more evil in the next few years?
I don't think they are going to be more evil or more hostile, but they will continue to pursue their policy. Because as I many times mentioned in your program, we have two Iran. We have Iran, the facade. We have Iran of Rouhani, Mr. Zarif, smiling. That's fantastic. But then we have the Iran of Khamenei. That's the main Iran. Khamenei has got the authority, and he would not give up his dreams. He wants to become Imam al-Muslimin. He wants to become leader of Shia all over the world. And he wants to become, the new prophet in a way. Therefore, he would not give up. When he has money, he spend it for Hezbollah, for Jihad, for Asa'ib al-Haq, for all these groups. And now Bahrain is the target because they failed in Yemen. Now they want the weakest
Dr. Nourizadeh, what is the role of the people of Iran in this? Because, it will reach a point where the people of Iran will see the fact that basically the Iranian regime is not giving them anything from the relief of the sanctions. Basically, the Iranian regime is not looking at the people. And I'm asking myself, where are the Iranians to say enough is enough? You know what? You think that you can control this country for a long time. Maybe it's about time that we will start control our own lives.
Well, the Iranian people, they came to the street. The Iranian people raised what they wanted. They said, no Gaza, no Lebanon. My soul, I sacrificed my soul for Iran. But is the world paid attention to the Iranian people? Mr. Obama, in the middle of the Green Movement, was corresponding with Khamenei. Now today I heard from Mr. John Kerry, and he said we are not going to change the Iranian regime attitude. Okay, what's the use of this deal? Okay, the deal is good because there won't be a war and the destruction. But on the other hand, the Iranian people thought the American influence will be effective to change at least some of regime behavior. More killing, more execution, more torture, and more intervention in other countries? No, we don't want that.
So basically what you're saying, Dr. Nourizadeh, that the fact that when Barack Obama stood in front, did the press conference and stood in front of the journalists and said, you know what, I am not here to educate Iran. I am here to prevent Iran from becoming a nuclear state. I'm here to prevent Iran from having a nuclear bomb, and that's it. So maybe the expectations from the United States were too high. Or the United States is failing to understand that if you need to do a deal, you need to do a big deal on everything.
No, they confiscate the gun, but they forget about the knives. And then they forget about the guy who had the gun and who has the knives. Unfortunately, the behavior of President Obama, I'm not going to approve his behavior. What he did about the deal was good, because I was very worried about the consequences of rejection by Iran or more condition. But as a matter of fact, people I'm talking to in Iran, they all said, oh my God, we thought there will be something they mention about human rights. Today the Iranian, they fabricated, all Iranian newspaper, a big document saying that Saudi Arabia paid $1 million to Ahmed Shahid, representative of General Secretary of UN, about human rights in Iran. $1 million, and it's all lies. That's the way regime behaves. And unfortunately, we don't see any condemnation by whether Mr. Obama or any other European leaders about the regime behavior towards Iranian. Sometimes we hear something about their intervention in other countries, but about killing Iranian people.
Yes, Dr. Ali Nourizadeh, when I told you that I miss you at the beginning, I thought that you were coming with good news. I didn't think that you were coming with bad news. Thank you very much. Always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. And we're moving back, we're moving to Israel. Two stories involving Israeli settlements unfolding. Overnight, hundreds of Israeli border policemen stormed the settlement of Beit El, clashing with settlers over moves to demolish illegal housing. In response, protesters also took their case to the Sanur settlement in the West Bank, one of several evacuated during the 2005 disengagement. Here's Or Shapira with the story.
Tension remains in the West Bank after the IDF took control of two half-complete buildings in the Jewish settlement of Beit El overnight. In response, around 250 pro-settler activists gathered in the northern West Bank outpost of Sanur, the same outpost that was evacuated 10 years ago.
The situation, the feeling here is very, very bad, and we hope that our representatives will really do something quickly.
The evacuation came after Israeli human rights organization Yesh Din turned to the Israeli High Court on Sunday, demanding to evacuate the so-called drain-off compound, which they claim is on Palestinian territory. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said his government opposes the demolitions in Beit El. This incident may be devastating for Netanyahu's coalition. Members of the nationalist right-wing party, the Jewish Home, sharply criticized Netanyahu and Minister of Defense Moshe Ya'alon, who ordered the troops into Beit El. Minister of Justice Ayelet Shaked from the Jewish Home Party threatened that Ya'alon's action will have consequences, but the defense minister defended his decision.
I am acting for the Jewish settlements in the West Bank, including Beit El. The silent majority knows this, but those who think I will break the law are wrong.
It is still unclear how this saga will end, since the Beit El local council is preparing to take legal actions to stop the demolition of the structures.
And we are with some non-breaking news. The Israeli Justice Minister has announced that an American parole board has decided to release jailed spy Jonathan Pollard on November 20th. Pollard was arrested in 1985 for selling America's secrets to Israel. And right now with me here in the studio is Amir Oren, defense and government analyst for Haaretz Daily newspaper. Good evening.
Evening, Lucy.
So first reaction about these breaking news.
This is the...
breaking or not breaking news?
Right. He didn't break out of jail.
Yes, yet.
This is the most unsurprising surprise of all, because as long ago as 10 years ago, we've all known that on November 21st, or as the case is now, the 20th, because it's a Friday, on the Saturday you don't release prisoners, Jonathan Pollard is going to be released following his 30 years in jail, which is considered life in prison for federal offenses unless there is an objection by the federal government. What the breaking news has just told us is that the federal government has decided not to object, and the parole board has decided to release him as expected, but we don't know what limitations are going to be put on him. Will he be able to emigrate to Israel? Will he be able to grant interviews? We'll have to wait another 4 months for that.
You don't think that this is coming as, let's say, a gift from the United States to Israel after the Iranian deal?
If the American system of government worked in such a way that Israel would have been given a gift, Benjamin Netanyahu would probably be the last one on the list to be given such a gift. And if Pollard is going to be released and emigrate to Israel, next year you will see him in Sanur leading the settlers.
Okay, so let's get back to, before I will get back to you to the conversation about Sanur and of course Beit El, let's join to this conversation. With me on the line from the Kfar Adumim is Dr. Aryeh Eldad, former member of Israeli Parliament of the Right Wing National Unity Party. Good evening, thank you very much for joining me.
Good evening.
So Dr. Eldad, your first reaction to the news about Pollard?
I couldn't hear you.
I'm saying your first reaction about the news about the release of Jonathan Pollard.
Oh, that's good news, certainly. It came much too late, but it's better than never, of course. I visited Jonathan Pollard about 10 years ago, and he was convinced that he was betrayed by Israel, that didn't do all or everything that Israel could do for him in order to put pressure on the United States in order to release him. It's a very, very convoluted and really complicated case to understand the motivations of all sides. But eventually he will be released in November, and I hope we will be able to know more about it when he's out.
Mr. Ariel, you think that maybe the rumors about, or maybe that it was some kind of the assumption that it was some kind of a gift that the United States gave Israel after the Iran deal, and after Israel really asked, maybe Israel asked something in return for the bad deal with Iran?
I can't see it as a gift. Maybe it was, or Pollard was kept in jail as a kind of a token. First, if we will reach an agreement with the Palestinians, and now that the time after 30 years come to release him, they are trying to portray it as a kind of gift, as a benefit to calm Israel a little bit with our bitterness about the Iranian, but I can see no connection between them. And I'm sure Netanyahu won't see any connection.
Yes, Mr. Ariel, that we wanted to talk about Sanor and Beit El, but you know, news, and this is breaking news, and it came out for the best that you are speaking with us. Thank you very much for this.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
One word about what happened today in Beit El and Sanor.
What happened was a political challenge to Benjamin Netanyahu and to Moshe Ya'alon, and as a party, not as persons, from the Jewish Home Party led by Naftali Bennett to the Likud. It means that the government is very fragile, that early elections could be at hand, and that the Jewish Home would challenge Netanyahu from the right.
Amir Oren, thank you very much. Likewise, we wanted to speak with you about Beit El, and it came out about
We'll have other chances.
We will have a lot of chances. Thank you very much for this.
Thank you, Lucy.
And we're going out for a small break, 2 minutes, and I'll be back for the rest of the news today. Don't go anywhere. NATO holds an emergency meeting over Turkey's strikes on the Islamic State and Kurdish militants, vowing strong support for Ankara's fight against terror. Clashes in the West Bank settlement of Beit El as protesters try to halt Israel's planned demolition of housing, while the evacuated settlement of Sanor settlers return in protest. And a Libyan court sentences Muammar Gaddafi's son, Saif al-Islam, and 8 others to death on charges of war crimes during the 2011 revolution. Welcome back to the news today. As he wraps up his African tour, U.S. President Barack Obama became the first sitting American president to address the African Union today. In the Ethiopian capital, Obama expressed his gratitude for being the first president to address the bloc and spoke of his personal heritage and connection to Africa. He also praised Africa's growth but condemned corruption in businesses and governments, specifically in countries like Burundi, where presidents refuse to step down.
Africa is on the move. A new Africa is emerging. Propelled by this progress and in partnership with the world, Africa has achieved historic gains in health. The rate of new HIV/AIDS infections has plummeted. African mothers are more likely to survive childbirth and have healthy babies. Deaths from malaria have been slashed, saving the lives of millions of African children. Millions have been lifted from extreme poverty. Africa has led the world in sending more children to school. In other words, more and more African men, women, and children are living with dignity and with hope.
And with me right now is journalist Andrew Green. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you.
So we can say that he basically gave the Cairo speech in Africa.
Yeah, he took an opportunity to really push for some civil liberties reforms, to push for greater democratization. But it was kind of a feel-good moment for him, I think.
How can you really, if we need to summarize his visit, how can we summarize? Was it good? Was it like, bad? Can we say that he managed to, controversial, he managed to come out with something, with a solution? Or again, these are just words, nice words, and he is a great, great speaker?
I think it's more the latter. It was really a feel good moment for his presidency to go to the country that's the home of his father, and meet the president there, exchange some kind words, then to travel to Ethiopia, which is really a key partner in terms of security in the region. But it kind of undermines any stance that he's taken in the past on human rights issues, because the country's a real human rights violator. And though he can lob some criticism while he's there, the fact that he went really kind of shows what's most important to him. So I think what we're seeing is, he met with some allies in the region. He showed a commitment to the continent that he hasn't really shown in the past very often, and he got an opportunity to tout some American policies that have worked out.
If we're talking about something to look for in the future, and from what I read and what I heard him saying today, that he wishes that maybe on his private life he will be able to be closer to Africa and to help Africa grow more. Are there any future plans that he is planning to do or in Africa, or only talking about business, but we will try to do it after I will not be a president?
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly not indicated that he has any concrete plans to get more involved in Kenya or any place in the African continent. I mean, it wouldn't necessarily be a surprise, given that he has roots, at least in East Africa, his family roots. But given the trend of his administration, where there's not been a lot of focus on the continent, and kind of the seeming lack of interest in the past few years up until this trip, I wouldn't expect to see too much, at least immediately after he steps down as president.
Oh, well, at least he said that if he will be, that he can be elected for the third term as the president of the United States. Maybe if he was the president for the United States for the third time, he managed to do something, but he's not. Andrew Green, thank you very, very much for this.
Thank you.
Yes, and we're going to Greece. We haven't spoke about Greece for a long time. In Athens, technical experts from Greece's international creditors arrived today for talks that will pave the way for the country's massive third bailout. On Monday, creditors said Greece would need to enact a third wave of tough reforms before any money would be released. Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras has pushed through 2 sets of reforms in Parliament, a condition for starting talks on a 3 loan worth up to 86 billion euros. And right now with me here to talk about cars is financial analyst Lionel Friedfeld. Good evening.
Good evening, Lucy.
No, we're not here to talk about cars, but we are here to talk about the money.
Big money and cars, exactly.
Yes.
And actually Volkswagen, which is, the German manufacturer, just became the largest automotive manufacturers in the world. They're actually replacing Toyota. They have been, for the first semester of 2015, replacing Toyota and producing actually selling more than 5 million cars.
What? How come? How come it just happened?
They're just ahead of, with 20,000 cars ahead of Toyota, and basically because Toyota have been selling less cars in Japan because of the internal, like private consumption in Japan. Mm-hmm. But if you remember, also Toyota became #1 in 2008 and actually took the leadership of General Motors, and General Motors had more than 70 years leadership, being the largest car manufacturer in the world. So today, basically, Volkswagen, Toyota, in 2014, they're producing more and selling more than 10 million cars each.
10 million cars each, like a year, we're talking more, right?
Yeah.
So it means that what will it mean in the future for this company? I believe that it means a lot of money, but what will it mean? That they will be able to buy more companies to what?
Cars are very important, and actually, it's an excellent question. Toyota doesn't want to stay there. They actually want to become, again, the #1 player in the world, and they have decided to do a massive investment plan. They're going to invest $1 billion in a plant in Mexico, actually, to have more cars serving North American market. But they're also going to invest a lot of money in China into an assembly line in China, because China is simply the largest market for automotive today.
Oh, perfect. So, but we can recommend German cars. German cars are really good. Yes, they are.
Very
also
robust.
Japanese. We're okay with everything. Lionel Friedfeld, thank you very, very much for this.
Thank you, Elsie.
In Texas, an independent committee of lawyers will investigate the death of Sandra Bland, who was found dead in a jail cell just days after being pulled over for a traffic violation. Her death, which sparked claims of racism against African Americans in Texas, was initially labeled a suicide, but has now evolved into an investigation by the FBI. Ayman Siksik has more.
2 weeks after her sudden death in a jail cell in Texas on July 13th, questions about Sandra Bland's final days continue to haunt her hometown. On Tuesday, public anguish over Bland's unexplained demise finally led Texas prosecutors to release the case to an independent review committee. Waller County District Attorney Elton Mathis said the review committee would be composed of select former prosecutors and defense attorneys, devoted to ensure that this case receives the appropriate level of scrutiny that it deserves. Mathis addressed what he called, quote, lingering questions about Sandra Bland's death, and noting that the FBI is now involved in the case. 28-year-old Bland was pulled over by police for failing to signal a lane change. Dashcam video released by the police revealed an arrest process which by now is widely seen as unjustified.
Get out of the car! Don't touch me! I'm not under arrest. You don't have the right to take me. You are under arrest. I'm under arrest for what? 25.
It would be just 3 days until Bland was found dead in her cell. Authorities concluded that Bland had committed suicide, a report later confirmed by an official autopsy. But public outcry over her arrest and consequent death quickly ensued, with the family demanding better answers from the police.
There was very little reason that can be gleaned from the dash cam why Sandy had to be thrown to the ground and hurt.
Bland's mother and 4 sisters maintain that Sandra, who was passionate about civil rights and was about to start a new job, would not have taken her own life and are calling for justice.
Get out of the car!
Brian Insignia, the 30-year-old police officer who arrested Bland in the incident that culminated in her death, remains on the force.
Yes, and still with minority problems in the United States, anti-Muslim sentiment has been a staple in America in one way or another since the 9/11 terror attacks. But well past a decade later, have things changed for the better or worse? Correspondent Mohammed Al-Qasim explains.
America has always prided itself in being the beacon for equality and freedom in the world. But since the 9/11 terror attacks, anti-Muslim sentiment and hate crimes have increased every year. In New York City, documented cases of hate crimes against the Muslim community rose 9% during the first 6 months this year to 127, compared to 116 in the same period last year. Nearly 15 years after 9/11, the perception may be that the atmosphere has changed for the better, but an incident just a few weeks ago may reflect otherwise. On July 16th, a Muslim American man carried out a fatal shooting of 4 Marines and 1 Navy officer in Chattanooga, Tennessee. It drew the following statement from retired General and former Democratic presidential candidate Wesley Clark in a television interview a few days later.
We are at war with this group of terrorists. They do have an ideology. In World War II, if someone supported Nazi Germany at the expense of the United States, we didn't say that was freedom of speech. We put him in a camp. They were prisoners of war.
Nathan Robinson, an expert in social policy, believes this view has become mainstream.
It's obviously going mainstream in the sense that mainstream political figures, respectable and
hierarchy people who have large followings within the Democratic and Republican Party have been able to voice this sentiment without being cast to the fringe.
Muslims in America were the victims of several deadly attacks just in the past year. Last December, a white man fatally ran over a young 15-year-old Somali boy as he was leaving a Kansas City mosque. In North Carolina, another white man fatally shot 3 Muslim students execution style, including 2 young women.
A moral and legal responsibility to ensure.
And the Florida gun shop owner, Andrew Hillenan, posted a YouTube video of himself saying,
I will not arm and train those who wish to do harm to my fellow patriots.
There are 7 million American Muslims in the U.S., many who feel there is hypocrisy in how politicians and the media treat them, compared to how they treat their fellow Americans. But violent crime in America stems from several communities.
KKK, domestic terrorism.
In South Carolina last month, a young white Christian man shot and killed 9 African American worshippers at a church. And just last week in Lafayette, Louisiana, a white man killed 2 people in a movie theater with a gun he purchased legally. Those incidents reignited a debate over what is called terror and what is not. America calls itself a melting pot. But that Lady Liberty quote, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free," may not apply to all.
And with me right now here in the studio is I-24 News correspondent and analyst Mohammed Al-Qasim. Good evening. Thank you very much for coming to the studio. Is it that bad, Mohammed?
Well, since 9/11, sentiments and anti-Muslim behavior has been on the rise. Is it that bad? It doesn't happen every minute of every hour of every day, of every week, of every month. But it does happen enough that you feel it and you see it.
How do you feel it? How do you see it? Like if you're walking on the streets and you're talking Arabic, people will turn their heads?
I've heard it myself. Hey, this is America. You speak English here. So, and also when women go out and they're wearing the hijab, that may present issues, especially when you have incidents like the Chattanooga, Tennessee shootings committed by an Arab American and Muslim American. Also, we have Daesh, we have Jaffa Nusra, we have Al-Qaeda in the news every day. Politicians and media aren't helping in reducing how Muslims are portrayed on TV.
Not only the media, but it seems that also the liberal Muslims, the, let's say, educated, open-minded Muslims are not shouting their voices high enough to actually change these stigmas in the media by politician, by, let's say...
This could be not by choice. They're trying very hard. But there is always an obstacle in the way. In America, it's a melting pot. I adhere to that. I say that things are much better off, or much better in America for Muslims and immigrants than it is in Europe. We don't see the kind of treatment of immigrants in America that we see in Europe.
Exactly, because what I wanted to ask you is that there is a feeling that the Arab or the Muslim Arabs or Muslims in the United States are more integrated in the American society than in, for example, France, than in England, than in Europe.
Absolutely. But when you hear on the news that a shooting took place anywhere in any city in America, if the name Muhammad, Abdullah, Ali is mentioned, it's immediately a terrorist attack. If it happens by John or by Smith, then it's just a crime. And that's why, also you have to understand that just in the first 6 months of this year, 127 cases just in New York City itself of reported hate crimes against Muslims, and many other crimes go unreported.
You finished the article, and with Lady Liberty, it seems that the problems in the United States are not better. The situation is not better than the situation in Israel, and we thought that this is the land of endless opportunities. Mohammed Al-Qasim, thank you very, very much.
My pleasure.
Thank you. The increasing cost of living has reached Israeli Bedouin communities in Israel as more women joined the labor market. Correspondent Shahal Pellet traveled to the southern villages of Rahat and Hurra and met the pioneering women breaking the conservative barriers in their tradition.
The mosque in the Bedouin village of Khura in southern Israel is a place of religious spirituality. It's also the workplace of some 30 women, a rare but gradually growing sight in the Bedouin sector.
When your workplace is inside a mosque, both places provide such a sense of security that motivates you to come to work.
Traditionally nomadic Arab tribes who live in the southern Negev region in Israel, some 200,000 Bedouins are mostly conservative communities with strong family constraints for women to stay at home and look after the children. The women at the Khura Beza Communications Service Center defy that tradition.
In the first, they didn't accept that I am working, but now they do. Because I didn't let them or the other people, they say to my family, she is a girl, she mustn't work. I am a woman, I have to go work. It's not just sitting at home, bring babies and that's it.
20-year-old Asma Kaboua, the first woman in her family to drive and study, applied to work when her family struggled financially.
I decided to help them and help myself and help my sister also. When they saw me, they want what I have. So now my little sister is study with me and the old one. People dislike that I go work. Some of them jealous. Now they, yes, now they look to me and they say, you have a car, you are at work, you are alone, really? You? Yes, I am. Why not?
Our greatest achievement is that the service center is managed entirely by Bedouin women who understand the culture and complexities of working women.
It's a pleasure to be in such a position, and it empowers the Bedouin women around me to see how it's possible to enter as a service representative and quickly be promoted to managerial roles.
Gradually interested in a better quality of life and better education for their children, Bedouin communities slowly but surely understand that progress sometimes overpowers tradition. But what happens when the women are further promoted and become senior managers and supervisors?
This is a new situation which isn't trivial. Back in my village, I am the only woman in a managerial position. But people accept this with time. We are a society going through change all the time.
Realizing the low rates of Arab women participating in the labor market, the Israeli Ministry of Economy has set targets of growth and supportive programs.
We are more targeted on women in this because it's more hard. You have difficult culture difficulties, skills difficulties, barriers.
80% of Salah Ibrahim's clients are Bedouin. Feeling obligated to employ the local population, he is often challenged by his 186 Bedouin employees who joined the workforce for the first time.
Saturday is our most crowded day. Suddenly, 8 cashiers didn't show up for their shifts. One said her husband didn't allow her to go to work today. Another said her father's car broke down. They're still not independent enough and lack work discipline.
But the tide is turning, and women like Asma, Yasmin and Miriam are paving the way through the obstacles and into self-confidence, equal family support and independence.
And with me right now here in the studio is correspondent Shachal Pellet. Good evening. Thank you very much for coming. How they manage actually to break this. I'm coming from the south. I know how the Bedouin community can be really hard and patriarchal, you know, community. It's
absolutely, it's not an
easy
environment for women, and we have to. It's important to remember that it remains a very much closed and traditional society. But this makes such initiatives overwhelmingly significant and important. We see the Riyadh Employment Center here focusing and encouraging women not only to seek for jobs but for quality work and for higher education in order to promote themselves in the future. And the Economy Minister of the Ministry of the State of Israel putting out targets. 41% of Arab women in Israel, as far as they see, will be part of the job market in 2020. And these are very good and important initiatives, but tensions are still high. This is why they are trying to balance also the employment opportunities, both for men and for women, in order to calm down tensions. But we see young Asma in the report. She told us she's not afraid and she's done nothing wrong for going and seeking out a job, which is entirely true, but it's still not a very safe society for women. A 2012 report shows that 97% of Bedouin women have suffered from some form of repeated violence. 85% said they had suffered from physical violence, and this is not easy numbers to. these are inconceivable numbers to digest. And we also have the polygamy issue that has been outlawed in Israel, but still is very much a part of the, very much common in the Bedouin community. Since the establishment of Israel, the population of the Bedouins in Israel has doubled every 15 years. Today, there are Bedouin men with over 100 children from different women. And this puts, of course, the majority of the Bedouin population underneath the poverty line and thus seeking for other sources of income. So it's very difficult circumstances, but if the result is pushing women into the workforce and into employment and opening the world other than keeping the household and taking care of children, it's good results, and we're looking forward to see them progress.
Definitely, definitely. Shahal Pella, thank you very much for this report. Very important one. Thank you very much. The 14th European Maccabi Games, or Maccabia Games, here we're calling it in Israel, begin tonight with over 2,000 Jewish athletes from 36 countries competing against each other in 19 disciplines for the first time in history in Germany. Michael Friedman has the details.
The 14th European Maccabi Games, known as the Jewish Olympics, are taking place in Berlin for the first time in history. 70 years after the end of World War II, these games are even more significant since they're being held in Berlin's Olympic Park, the same place where Adolf Hitler enjoyed adulation of the crowd at the 1936 Olympic Games. Featuring Jewish athletes from across the world, the Games will send a message of tolerance, openness, and standing against anti-Semitism and racism. Athletes from 36 countries will be competing against each other in 19 disciplines, ranging from water polo to basketball, and even chess and bridge. The president of the Maccabi Germany spoke of the importance of organizing the occasion for the world to see.
Today, Jewish life in Germany is reviving. We have over 120,000 members in 108 Jewish communities. Berlin is the biggest Jewish community, and you will have all the options to explore it this week. You will see throughout the next 10 days the Jews in Germany are not only safe, but also proud of our long-standing Jewish tradition.
Despite the rise in anti-Semitism in Europe, the Games include cultural programs which are intended to raise the event's profile and broaden its outreach. As for the athletes representing their nations, each is proud to be involved in this historic event.
It's obviously a great experience for me coming from another country as well. I'm representing Germany even though I'm born and raised in Canada. It means so much to me to really be a part of the evolution of not only Germany, but the Jewish people in general.
The European Maccabia is an offshoot of the Maccabi Games, which were first held in 1932 and have expanded over the years. The Games now being held in Berlin will run through August 5th and provide hope for many Jewish people around the world.
Yes, and with me right now, somebody who didn't go to the Maccabia game.
Why is that?
I don't know why we didn't send you.
Why is that?
I don't know why we didn't send you.
Thoroughly disappointed.
Because you are like know how to do a lot of things, and you're talented in a lot of things, and you cannot go to them.
It's not working.
I didn't say anything.
No.
Jonathan Reggett.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening. Hello.
All good. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm fine. A little bit sick, but okay. I'll be good. I'll survive.
Air conditioning.
Air conditioning.
Summer air conditioning.
Yeah.
We begin with...
Start with?
Yeah, Boston. We tend to think that host cities of Olympics and big events, countries that host the World Cup, they're always very happy because we see when the announcements are made, the winning city, the people always jump, enjoy. Not exactly like that. The American Olympic Committee a few months ago designated Boston as the American bid for the 2024 Summer Olympics, and the city of Boston said this week, no, we do not want this. The mayor said that the residents, there are very high standards which the city has to meet. They cost a lot of money. The mayor says, you know what, if this money will come from my city's taxpayers, I don't want this. And this, after a poll conducted, showed that most of the residents of Boston say, we don't want this. We don't want to put out $2 billion from our taxes to host this. We don't need this.
Good for them.
And the U.S. Olympic Committee, they can look for another city. Go ahead. We don't want this.
Okay, so let's go ahead to something else.
Yes. Mick Fanning. Remember the guy that with the shark? He said a week ago, I don't care about surfing. I'm just happy to be alive. Well, that lasted about 5 days. Comme ci, comme ça.
And he went back to the water?
Oh, yes. He just can't stay outside. And he's back in the waters. He's sailing. And at the end, he's in Australia. This is pretty much his backyard where we see him sailing. That's where he grew up.
And in Australia, there are a lot of sharks.
There are a lot of sharks, by the way. Even in Bondi Beach, down in Sydney, there are sharks nearby. But he's not afraid of it, apparently.
Good for him also.
Yeah. It's good that they didn't have any trauma.
Good for everyone.
Yes.
Moscow,
the Flugtag event. It's this event where people get stupid and try to fly. That's basically the thing. And it happened last weekend in Moscow. People put on the incredibly stupid costumes and were trying to fly into the water. The winning duo was the one that dressed up as Obama and Putin. Did they fall in? Did they fly? Not really. They fell into the water like everyone else.
Vladimir Putin saw that, I think that
no Flugtag for you.
No.
Come back.
I think that he will
Don't
fly
come back.
somewhere else.
Yes. But it's and there they are, Putin and Obama. It was a nice event. Always nice.
That's it.
No more.
Jonathan Regev, thank you very much.
Thank you,
I'm going
Lucy.
to make me another tea. Update from our news desk, and then we will be back. Jonathan Regev is going. I'm going. Just update, and I'll be back. Welcome back to the news today, and right now we're here to discuss a little bit about the Israeli politics and all the situation that is happening right now in the settlements of Bet El and Sanur. With me here to discuss this is Professor of Political Science, Dr. Hani Zubaydah. Good evening.
Hi, good evening, Lucy.
And also Dov Lipman, former member of Israeli Parliament from the Yesh Atid Party and political analyst. Good evening. Thank you very much for coming. Gentlemen, let's talk a little bit about what happened in the last 24 hours in Bet El. I know that you're smiling. I know what you have to say, but I have to ask the questions so the viewers will know what I'm talking about.
We can literally talk about the left hand smacking the face, which the right hand is trying to protect.
Because
the Israeli government.
You don't want me to ask the question. No, I don't ask the questions. Just go. We'll just stop. What I wanted to ask so our viewers will understand, why is it possible that the judicial system contradicts the ideology of a right-wing government and contradicts the ideology of the government? It's two different things. We didn't think that in a right-wing government this would have happened.
Well, they're not actually contradicting the government. What they're doing is they're contradicting some facets of the government, which first and foremost, we have to understand that it's not, the houses are not for demolition at this point in Bet El and in Sanur. What they said, what the Israeli government said, and the Supreme Court decided that it's right, is they decided to evacuate the houses, hold them empty, wait until a decision, but they're not yet up for demolition. I think what we need to look here is the contractor who built these houses, a guy by the name Drynov, who's making a spin, but what we see from the spin he made is the catch-22 in which he binded Ayelet Shaked, Uri Ariel, Smotrich, and ינון Magal, which are parliament member of the Jewish Home, because this is their electorate.
This is like a big slap to the Jewish Home Party. We just saw the SMSs going on between Ayelet Shaked saying that, oh, you see what you sending it to the head of the...
Well, she sent it to the Minister of Security. And he promised her that nothing will happen during
the
that
night.
day. Yeah.
3:15 at night, she's sending a message, look what is... I'm sorry for interrupting you, but look what is happening right now in Bet El. This is how the parliament, this is how the government is working?
I'm going to use that to sharpen your question. You asked about the judicial versus the government.
Yes.
That has always been a little bit of an issue. Here it's a right-wing government versus the security establishment. In my eyes, that's a whole different world where you have ministers in a government of the same party of the defense minister speaking out against him. This is a whole new game in terms of everything that I experienced.
Oh, but this is not the first time that Naftali Bennett is going out against Bogiel the defense minister.
And here, in terms of the issue of the settlements, but I'm talking about within the Likud. I'm not talking about Bennett versus Likud. I'm talking about in the Likud, ministers going there and saying, we're against our own defense minister from our own party. I believe that the tensions are far worse from within than people are realizing, and this is the real threat to the current situation.
Before we will continue discussing this, Uri Shapiro, our correspondent, is in Beit El settlement. Good evening, Uri. What does it look like there tonight?
Good evening, Lucy. We can see here dozens of people who came here to support the settlers. They came from all over the West Bank. I suppose perhaps even hundreds of people who came here. The protest became pretty violent. We saw people throwing stones, people set fire trash cans. Earlier we saw MK from the Likud, Oren Chazan, who also came here and said some words to the settlers. We must remember that this is not the first time we can see this kind of sight. In 2005, after the evacuation of Amona, we saw similar sights. Police hope that it won't turn out to be more violent than it is now.
Yes, Uri Shapiro, thank you very much for this update from Beit El. We're seeing that a lot of people are there, and it's a little bit hard to...
It's hectic, yeah.
But if this blows up, and again, I hope it does not, but when you have violence between the settlers that are there and the police, if somebody gets hurt, if something happens, these are the things where just a stone here and there, I believe, can make it a much more volatile situation.
But Minister, let's just say the defense minister is being accused right now of being a traitor. He is from the government that he is part of.
Do we want to remember who the Minister of Security is? That's Bogi Alon, the ex-chief of staff, and a general, very decorated general, very hard-line rightist. There's a huge difference between what we're negotiating here. Let me remind you Arik Sharon and the disengagement from Gush Katif, which was exactly the same. I think people said, well, Dov is a very contained person, so he does not say out loud what other people, and that was a compliment.
I take it that way.
Yeah.
I take it that
no,
way.
he will not say like other
Don't
people.
Contain yourself.
No, I think that's
coming out.
No, that's an excellent character, because when the disengagement was on, people said there will be bloodshed, brothers will fight each other, and so on and so forth. And at the end of the day, although people were saying harsh things from both sides, everything went on fine. I think this time what happened here, and Drainov, the name, remember the name, Drainov, the contractor who is trying to build these two houses, this is the guy who's spinning everybody. And because Bennett, Shaked, Yinon Magal, Smutrich cannot say anything else, they're binded into going there and saying we will have to continue building and so on and so forth. But Ya'alon is saying one small thing, guys, that's okay. I'm a hardcore right-winger as well. But we have the law and we have to abide the law, which is a huge issue. But I think when we spoke about the government, and I said one important thing, ideological cohesiveness. There is no ideological cohesiveness in this government, like the previous one.
You said something last time. I think that I think it was last time that you were here. You said that it seems that Benjamin Netanyahu is going more to the left. He is becoming the leftist in this group, and all his government is the extreme right. He is becoming the guy who's going for a peace process. He's becoming the guy who's trying to halt the settlement building. He's becoming the guy who's trying to reach from some kind of a understanding with Saudi Arabia and regional agreements. And all his government
There's one person who disappeared completely. Nobody can find him. The Minister of Treasury, Moshe Kahlon, disappeared. Nobody can see him.
But remember that all of this is happening within the shadow, months, weeks of this intense election where it was, you must support Netanyahu or else, God forbid, who knows what will happen to the whole Judea and Samaria, West Bank, to all of this. And on the heels of that, these people who are there that you see there, they voted Netanyahu. They went out and they voted Netanyahu to protect their enterprise, what they view as the right thing, and now they're seeing that all fall apart. Even though I agree with Hani 100%, Bogi Ya'alon, the defense minister, was talking about the legal side versus building settlements. People can't see that. People see you're touching the settlements, and that's all they see, and that's why it's so...
Until when can this government actually maintain itself or maintain and control when these people that voted for Benjamin Netanyahu are yelling to Naftali Bennett from the Jewish Home Party, get out of the government?
March 15.
March 15?
That's the final day to get the budget moved ahead for next year. As the budget looks right now, that will be the major hurdle. This will be forgotten. This is a done deal. It will be forgotten in about a week. The problem is right now that the Prime Minister does not have the necessary majority to get the budget moved ahead.
I will tell you, because I heard Lieberman today in one of the Israeli websites, and I'm starting to hear people who are talking about elections. People are trying to campaign, starting to campaign all over again. If it's Naftali Bennett, if it's Yair Lapid who is going to the Wailing Wall, if it's everybody's starting to campaign all over again.
I agree with Hani that the budget is a major, major issue, but even if they manage to somehow find a way to get through the budget, it can't last very long this way. It's an impossibility. What's been overshadowed today is that the finance ministry came to an agreement with the ultra-Orthodox parties, a crazy agreement about giving child benefits in savings accounts for 18 years down the road. No one's even talking about it because we're dealing with this issue. I don't believe the right-wing issue is going away. I don't believe it's going away.
Can we say, really, I cannot believe that I'm saying that, but really, King Benjamin Netanyahu managed to also, the magician maybe Benjamin Netanyahu, managed to also make Kahlon, the finance minister, disappear.
We need to wait. We need to wait until he comes with the
what?
finalized
He's killing
budget.
his political career.
Kahlon is working very quietly. It should be said.
Is
this
he?
is why I say yes, he is working. He's getting into agreements with the ultra-Orthodox. He's getting into agreements from within the coalition. Kahlon is working very diligently and very quietly. When I said he disappeared, I meant about this notion of left, right, center. We also have to remember that Naftali Bennett is heading to the center as well, while Benjamin Netanyahu is moving to the center. At the edges of his heels, we can see Naftali Bennett running into the center as well, because he understands that as an extreme rightist, he will never be elected to prime minister. What we see right now, Kahlon working. The question is, when Kahlon submits the draft of his budget, what would Benjamin Netanyahu say then?
I have to tell you, I feel bad for Kahlon, because all those voters who came, the 10 mandates, expecting, again, miracles on the financial economic front, whenever elections come, whenever they come, it'll be sooner than we imagined in the beginning, people are going to say, we're no better. Same thing that happened to us in Yesh Atid. We're no better. And when you run specifically on that issue, I think you're 100% correct in your assessment. The Prime Minister has made him insignificant.
Unbelievable. And I didn't even talk with you about the gas deal yet. Oh my God. Gentlemen. Gentlemen, thank you very, very much for this. Always a pleasure. Listen to this. The Boy Scouts of America has ended its ban on gay adult leaders, dismantling a policy that has deeply divided the membership of the 105-year-old Texas-based organization. The organization will still allow church-sponsored scout units to maintain the exclusion of religious reasons. ABC has more.
After 105 years of scouting, one of the nation's most popular youth organizations takes another step on the trail toward inclusion. The Boy Scouts now permitting openly gay leaders.
For far too long, this issue has divided and distracted us. Now it's time to unite behind our shared belief and the extraordinary power of scouting to be a force for good.
The group's president said the ban on gay adult leaders was not sustainable and would lead to more costly lawsuits, a decision hailed by gay rights advocates, including many within the organization. But the policy change threatens to further fracture the organization, despite a promise by the executive board that there would still be an exception for church-sponsored scout units with religious objections. The denominations that charter nearly half of all units are threatening to split off. In a statement, the Mormon Church said it was deeply troubled by the decision, and the admission of openly gay leaders is inconsistent with the doctrines of the church.
Show the plasma. Take it like yes. I'm Siksik. Hello.
Good evening, Lucy.
We're talking today about Alfred Hitchcock.
We are.
The biography.
The biography, a new one. After many, many, many biographies of Alfred Hitchcock, this one takes a slightly different approach. Peter Ackroyd tries to show us his childhood a little bit. He grew up in London in a very, very devout Catholic family, and Peter Ackroyd tells us that this is where he got his sense of mystery and miracle, which later on developed to terror. And what's interesting to see about Alfred Hitchcock, the kid, as you know, Alfred Hitchcock, as you can see in the plasma, was a large man, let us put it this way.
Yes.
And he was also overweight as a kid, so he was shunned by other kids. He was not sociable, he didn't like other children, had a very rough childhood. And Peter Ackroyd says that this is where his motivation to scare people and terrorize them came from eventually. So
it's amazing that always the kid who is not welcome in school and is not popular in school ending up to be the most successful one.
That said, we saw this with Bill Gates, with Steve Jobs, and with Alfred Hitchcock, but Hitchcock really did take it to a different level. He loved also to terrorize his actresses, but for real. Tippi Hedren in one of his most famous movies, The Birds, which we are getting.
I hate this movie.
It's an amazing film.
People are going to kill me now, but I hate this movie for a long, long time. I couldn't imagine myself like even near a bird because of this film.
Well, let me tell you a story. While Tippi Hedren, the actress, doesn't like birds even more than you after doing this film. So he promised her that he would use mechanical birds in the scene where the birds attack her in one of the rooms, the most famous scene in the movie. But on the day, he used live birds, which punctured her cheek and almost took her eye out. And because he wanted to get that real sense of terror out of her. So doctors came, paramedics came and said she can't work for another month, but he forced her to continue working the next day.
So can we say that him trying to connect reality to the movie or to the imaginary world was his actual secret?
Absolutely, absolutely. He found that secret that what terrorizes us is really the suspense of something about to happen and not so much the terror that we see in movies today with the splashing blood everywhere. And I think the biggest lesson from this book is that if you ever run into a large man who wants to terrorize you and make your life miserable, just remember he was probably a miserable kid.
Oh, I think about a lot of people right now. I'm sick. You made me think, yes. But Alfred Hitchcock is a legend, and we are learning a lot from his history and what was left in cinema. I'm Sick. Thank you very much for this.
Thank you, Lucy.
I'm not going to love birds more because...
We have to watch it together one time.
Yeah,
I'll analyze it for you. You might hate it more after that.
Yes, and that's it for tonight. Tomorrow we will be here again on the same time, same place from the Jaffa Port, Israel. Have peace with a lot of birds. Goodbye.